are so excited to have everybody. Next slide, please. So I'd like to start with housekeeping and information. Like I said, welcome to the first PxP Africa meeting, a meeting for and by patients. At PxP, we are all about patient engagement in research. Though anyone is welcome to the meeting. My name is Joab Wako. I'm a proud person with lived experience. More specifically, I've lived with chronic kidney disease for 10 years and a kidney transplant for 9. Find our detailed bios in the chat. Note that this meeting is being recorded and will be posted on the PxP YouTube channel. The link, which will be posted in the chat as well, to the YouTube channel, that is. Kindly note that we are sharing mental health resources in the chat as well. We're cognizant that some of the topics and conversations may trigger us as people with lived experience. If you have additional mental health resources, kindly add them to the list. Our aim is for this space to be safe and inclusive, and individuals who are not being respectful will be removed from the meeting. Our social media hashtag is hashtag PxP25. Feel free to share anything you wish on social media. And I'd like to thank this meeting supporter, the Canadian Institute of Health Research, Institute of Musculoskeletal Health and Arthritis. And I'd like to recognize and thank Dr. Karim Khan, Don Richards, and Hetty Mulhall, and the team for everything they've done to make this possible. Next slide, please. So let's get into it. Why are you here? Like, why do African patient voices matter? So to set the scene and set the tone for this meeting, Africa attracts less than 1% of all trials conducted around the world. The implication is that the proof of safety and efficacy in Africans is lacking for a lot of new therapies. A sizable proportion of approximately 20% of the global population that Africa represents largely does not have empiric data to support use of new therapies in a population with a distinct genetic and racial profile. To me, this quote, it shows that Africa doesn't get enough of the trials, and my chronic kidney condition is possibly genetic. I never really got to find out. And so if there were more trials on the continent, I believe we would be able to find out more about chronic kidney disease and possibly stop or prevent others from experiencing what I've experienced. I feel like it's so important to our lives as people with lived experience to have data that is specific to Africans, because from my research, what I've seen is the gene that causes the chronic kidney disease that I think I have, because I never found out, is linked to sleeping sickness, and it's in sub-Saharan Africa predominantly. So there hasn't been enough research. There's still research going on, but there hasn't been enough. And I believe that with more trials done in Africa, we would be able to find out about that gene and test and prevent through gene testing future young people from getting it, and that would improve lives vastly. So I see it touches me that there's not enough, and I would push for a lot more clinical trials to be conducted in Africa. So that's what this quote means to me. Next slide, please. You're on mute, Kwanele.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the inaugural PxP Africa. I am Kwanele Asante, and I am a person living with mental illness, bipolar mood disorder. I am breast cancer, NAD, which means no evidence of disease, and I'm also living with congestive heart failure. I wish to share my reflection. Clinical research in Africa reflects the global champagne glass of power and participation. While trials are increasingly conducted on the continent, decision-making authority, funding, design power remain concentrated in the global north. African patients, people like us, are overwhelmingly positioned at the bottom of the glass, expected to provide data, but rarely afforded the opportunity to shape the research agenda or to benefit from research outcomes. It is now my pleasure. Am I right, boss? I actually did forget to say that I am being led by my boss. You will see as we unfold. Am I right, boss?
You're very correct. You're in order.
Okay. It is now my honor to formally introduce my colleague, young African, Joab Wako. Joab is a mechanical engineer, and he's my co-lead for PxP Africa. He's also a member of PxP steering committee, the main one, more later. Joab is also a member of the WHO, as in the World Health Organization, because people often say you guys speak in codes or in abbreviation. WHO, which is World Health Organization Steering Committee on Meaningful Engagement. He is very proudly our moderator for today. Please help me welcome Joab and enjoy the conversation.
Thank you so much, my mentor, Kwanele. And next slide, please. Yes, so we're in the panel discussion. This is the meat of this meeting. And we're moving from research participants to patient partners in research. We have 3 lived experience experts here to share with us their knowledge, each bringing a unique perspective on the topic. And we shall begin with Rosebud Ombura, a powerful lived experience expert and fellow country lady from Kenya. She will bring her perspective on research and her community. Karibu, which means welcome in Kiswahili. Rosebud, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Joab. I'm Rosebud Ombura, a stroke survivor. Thanks for the birthday wishes. Yesterday was my birthday, and going through is my record that will give the guideline through. Thank you.
Joab, if I may, we would love to welcome Rosebud's mom, who is there with her. And Joab, the floor is back to you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. And this is something Rosebud talks about in her video, the importance of caregivers. So without more to do, kindly play Rosebud's.
My name is Rosebud Ombura, a stroke survivor, a community health promoter, and a disability champion. I'm based in Soweto East, Nairobi, Langata sub-county. That is where you will get me. In a small slum by the name Kibera. At the age of 4.5 years, my lived experience began when I had a stroke and a poliomyelitis at the same time. I could not walk or move, and my stroke affected my right hand and my right foot. Thanks to therapy, I regained mobility in my hand and my foot. However, due to my stroke, I still forget easily, or I may take more time to respond than others. I like making new friends, as I have done to PNP. I'm a disability champion, as I said, ready to go an extra mile for others. I want others to know that a disability is a club that anyone can join. I became involved in a research as a stroke survivor through a coordinator and Madam Piska. Many of you know Piska. Many are the researchers that have taken part in, but has been a disappointment all through. Why am I saying this? Is because researchers used to come at my place with questionnaires, and after questioning you, I realized that it's by their own benefit. Rosebud has been on media not more than 5 times, but even now, if you ask them if they know how I am doing, they are nowhere to be seen. PNP, hope you are here to add volume to our voices as patients, because I believe that when patients are involved in research, they are able to gain courage to speak for themselves, as I'm doing. My interest is in research, as per now, is to know more about NCD prevention and control. To researchers, inclusivity should be both patients and researchers should be exchanging to each other. Meet patient needs. The researchers should stop coming with questionnaires that is set. Researchers should stop assuming that they know patients' needs more than themselves. Challenges faced when patients are not treated the same way in researchers. Number one, unsustainable program. Number two, create barriers toward researchers and patients. If you don't involve patients, never know type or stroke and has. Patients refuse to cooperate because no one knows what's up with the questions to be asked. What do I need? One, inclusivity on target groups. Number two, start with patients and end with patients. If you start with me, Rosebud, end with me, Rosebud, by the end of the questionnaire, you will clearly know who Rosebud is. Number three, understand the patients. They are coming to do research. Example, maybe one has challenge with language, or one is passing through depression or stress. What happens next? Answer for yourself. Together in one voice, we will speak up for others' patients. And always don't forget the caregivers. They are the key. Last but not least, I'm also a proud mother of two. An orphan, and living with a mother who is my caregiver, who is fighting with arthritis. PNP, let this not be the last webinar we are having, but bring along more of this. Our voices must be heard. Many of the patients out there, they don't have voices. So our voices must be heard. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rosebud. What a powerful statement. We're so proud of you. We're seeing everyone, the whole room is clapping. You have done an amazing statement. We need to amplify our voices as African patient partners. Indeed. And what stood out for me is after patients have information, they are likely to participate in clinical trials, and therefore recruitment is faster and more patients are retained, because patients as patient partners are able to feel involved, feel engaged, and we're not data, we are people, we're humans with emotions and lives. So thank you so much, Rosebud. Don't know if you have anything to say before I go to the next speaker. Okay, you look like you're okay. Allow me to move on or next. Okay. So our next speaker is, we will listen to Mbali Ngobese with insights. Mbali is an eloquent, lived experience expert from South Africa. She will bring her perspective on breaking barriers to patient involvement. Mbali, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Mbali Ngobese. I am a health systems researcher, an advocate for health justice, and a patient living with type 1 diabetes. My work sits at the intersection of lived experience, public policy, and historical memory, from researching health reforms to preserving South Africa's policy archives. I'm passionate about building ethical, people-centered systems that honor both data and dignity. I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes in 2017 when I was just 16 years old. It came as a shock because what kind of teenager wants to hear that they've been given a lifelong condition? But deep down, I wasn't surprised because this would make me a third-generation diabetic. Both sides of my family, my grandparents, my aunts, my uncles, even my dad are diabetics. So all in all, my genes never stood a chance. In 2017, I walked into my GP's office after months of recurring infections. He ran some blood tests, called me back the next day, and gave me the news. I told my mom to wait in the car because in my teenage mind, I was basically an adult. I walked into that office, and 15 minutes later, my life had changed forever. My doctor said, "Your sugar is high, your HB1AC is off the charts." He handed me a prescription, a glucose monitor, a list of foods to avoid, and he told me, "This is on you. Change your diet, exercise, it's reversible." I remember I walked out feeling so ashamed that I even told my mom, "No, it's just a UTI," and I kept it pushing. But I did. I took it seriously. I joined every sports team at school. I did netball, swimming, running, soccer, tennis. I exercised every day. I cut sugar, then carbs, then fruits, then starch. Still no change. My meds kept increasing, but I kept telling my doctor, "This can't be type 2. I promise you, I know my body." But instead of being heard, I was treated as non-compliant and difficult. So what did I do? I stopped going. Fast forward to 2024, I collapsed and was rushed to the hospital. When I got to the emergency room, my sugar was at 26. The normal range is between 4 and 7. I was in severe diabetic ketoacidosis, which is a life-threatening state where your body is so starved of insulin, it starts to break down fat too fast and acid floods your blood. The ER doctor looked at me and gently said, "I'm so sorry, sweetie, but I think you have diabetes." In a moment of frustration, I shouted and I said, "I don't." He started listing a bunch of medications where I kept interjecting. "I've been on that. I'm maxed out on that too. Yes, I've been on that." A concoction of both of those. Until finally he paused and he said to me, "There's something strange here." That moment of doubt, that pause, that is what saved my life. He referred me to the Center of Diabetes and Endocrinology here in South Africa, where a diabetes educator looked at my chart and asked me, "Who told you you have type 2 diabetes?" I said, my GP in 2017. She blinked and said, "How? Did anyone ever test you to see if you have type 2 diabetes?" I said no. One simple blood test done in 2024 confirmed what I've been saying for 7 years. No, I am not a type 2 diabetic. Instead, I was a type 1 diabetic. Within a week of getting the right treatment, my sugars were in range for the first time since my diagnosis. Not because I finally tried hard enough, not because I earned it, but because someone finally listened to me. But I didn't walk away untouched. The delay in treatment caused me to develop diabetic macular edema, which is a condition that can cause vision loss. Thankfully, I'm still receiving treatment for that. Funny enough, I even studied a Bachelor of Science in Biological Science because I thought maybe if I could find out how my body works on a molecular level, then someone would finally believe me. So I ask you, can you imagine if they had just listened to me in 2017? And that's where these structural barriers come in. This epistemic injustice, this colonial logistics, and this exclusion. I believe what happened to me is not just personal, it's structural. Because when patients are dismissed, misdiagnosed, or excluded, it's not just bad luck, it's how the system was designed. Research is still driven by funders, academics, institutions, and not by communities. Patients remain sidelined. Our voices are treated as anecdotal, unreliable. Our labor is unpaid. Our pain is pathologized. And in African context, these exclusions are not accidental. They are historical. Colonial health systems were built to map, test, and extract from communities and never with them. And many of today's systems, from ethic boards to health surveys, still carry that very DNA. You can see it in how clinics are structured, in how research is designed in boardrooms, piloted in townships, and published in global journals, disconnected from the actual context. Even our knowledge as Black Africans with lived experiences is devalued. We are good enough to be cited, but never good enough to lead. So when I say patient engagement, I don't mean consultation. I mean co-authorship. I mean funding patients to design studies, to interpret the findings, to shape policy briefs. I mean treating emotional intelligence as a methodology and not an afterthought. Because healing and research are not separate. They never were. I saw a quote the other day that said, "Science without compassion is just as dangerous as ignorance." And in my work from national health insurance research to gender-based violence access mapping, I've seen how systems frame patients long before they speak, long before we speak. What we call healthcare often rests on colonial spatial logics, where systems are built to control, to exclude, to surveil, and never to care. So, to break these logics, we need more than inclusion. We need a full redesign. We need ethics frameworks that ask, what have we broken? Who are we excluding? And whose work is being done? Who is doing the work off the record and outside of the institution? In one of my GBVF research projects, survivors described the clinic as a site of not only care, but of emotional harm. They spoke not just in symptoms, but in social coding, how their accents were mocked, how their disclosures were doubted, and how their very pain were minimized. That taught me something. Lived experience is not anecdotal. It is a form of data extraction with soul. So when we talk about centering us, we also talk about repair, not just inviting people to the table, but asking who's patching up the cracks in the system while institutions looked away. Real engagement means changing the architecture and not just the optics. And that's what PxP Africa represents. PxP Africa represents something radical, a new contract that states nothing about us without us at every step. I don't just want to be someone's inspiring patient story. I want to sit on the ethics board. I want to design the study. And I want to ask the questions that institutions are so afraid to ask. Because patients are not subjects. We are theorists, we are analysts, we are architects. We live inside broken systems, and yet we still survive. That is data. That is theory. That is knowledge. We are no longer waiting to be included, honestly. We are already building on our terms, because the future of health research isn't just about inclusion. It should be about transformation. It should be about justice. And honestly, it's about a system that finally listens. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Mbali. I feel you represent so much to us young people with lived experience because you're so informed that that narrative that a patient like is a doctor and a patient is like a teacher student, it changes because us as people with lived experience, us as patient partners, we've researched, we've done our homework, we have information, and that's why we're people with lived experience. I'm gonna just read some comments. There's so many comments that are in the chat from your speech. The first is Dr. Karim Khan. The need to honor both data and dignity. Indeed, we do. Power of listening can make the difference between life and death. And healing and research are not separate. A lot of powerful feedback from there. Then there's also real engagement means changing the architecture and not just optics. And for me, the one that really takes it is a full redesign instead of just involvement, changing the architecture and not optics. It's about really getting to the structure. So you represent so much. Thank you so much for your insights. They're very valuable. And as you can see, please feel free to go in the chat and answer your fans because there's a lot of knowledge you dropped on us. So thank you so much, Mbali.
No, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. So we'll move on to the next panelist, who will be Action Amos. And Action is an accomplished lived experience advocate from Malawi. He will bring his perspective on the power of lived experience in shaping research. So Action, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Joab. I'll just try to, I'm in a place where electricity has just gone, and I think you will not be able to see me. So to do it will be a disfavor if I keep the camera on. I'll just have to switch it off for now. So as I've been introduced, I'm a person with lived experience. I suffer from a neuropsychiatric disorder, and my bio has been shared. I serve in different capacities, of which I think all has been highlighted in my bios. But just in addition to that, I also advise several universities around in projects on lived experience. I sit in several boards, including the Global Council, which is a Global Community Council, which is also a lived experience council. So I just want you to imagine sitting in a room where decisions about your life are being made. Yet your voice is barely heard in that room. Well, this was my reality when I first became involved in research. I was a participant in studies exploring mental health, epilepsy, and neurological disorders. Just like my colleagues who have spoken before me, I shared my experience, answered questions, and contributed to many of the data that was being collected. But I had little control over how these studies, one, were designed, conducted and how the findings were interpreted and also used. And just from that engagement where I was kind of excluded, not because I did not have capacity, but because I was just being regarded as a subject. This early experience actually revealed challenges and barriers faced by so many persons with lived experience. One, you have limited influence over the research decisions. There is tokenistic involvement, where I was just being involved in ticking box. We have so many people with lived experience. And I want just to share with you, maybe you might be surprised why I emphasize on the word lived experience. I regard myself as a lived experience expert. I'm a patient, yes, in a clinical setting. I would agree I'm a patient, but when it comes to research, I'm an expert in my own right. Not that I only have a condition, but also I qualify to do the research work. So there's been undervaluing of knowledge that we carry as lived experience experts. You don't have to go to school to be a person with a lived experience expert, because you are living the condition that might be researched at that time. So it was like being in a theater where the script had already been written, and you're only invited to play a minor role of what has been already prescribed for you. So that I found it to be quite a challenge. I would look at the other people that I was serving, giving information, same qualifications as me. And at one point, some of them I had higher qualifications that they had. At times I would actually advise on, reshaping again the research that was happening. And so there was now a transition. So over time, my role evolved. I moved from being a subject to becoming an active contributor. And today, as I speak, I've participated in 23 studies, and I've led 4 of them. And of these 23 that I'm talking about, I'm not counting those ones where I was being used as a subject. Those ones, they don't matter, and I don't even count them at all. And why I don't even count them, we have a challenge within Africa where research is done, but its uptake is a challenge. So researches are done, the uptake is poor, they just sit on the shelf. Why? Because one piece of the work had been left out, which is the involvement of lived experience. Because when you're doing research, there is a supply and demand kind of arrangement where those that are affected actually are those that would act in both sides of supplying the information and later demanding. So you might find that most of the research that has been done within the or maybe has been prescribed somewhere and brought to us, you would note that most of those researches have not helped us in any way because the uptake has been poor. Why? Because the demand side has not been there. Of the 23 researchers that I'm talking about that have been involved, they've contributed to policy change in one way or the other. That's why I count these, because the demand side, when the research is done, we then go to the policymakers and say, look, this is what the evidence is saying. We are being affected. There's shortages of medication, the supply is poor service, and so forth, non-availability, non-affordability, non-accessible of services are there. And we show that by evidence. So in these 23 and 4 that I led, handed a steering wheel after years of being a passenger. Suddenly, I could help guide the direction of the research, influence the methods used, and ensure that voices of those with lived experience were not just heard, but also prioritized. So we are underestimated, our capacity is undervalued, but I would fight on the table to ensure that our voices are actually read. At times, I've designed research agendas shared with academics, and some of them have actually been funded. Currently, as I speak, I have 4 active researches that are happening in Malawi, in and Zimbabwe, of which 2 of them I'm part of the team that is involved in leading those researches. So, like I mentioned, at times you feel like, you're turning a lighthouse on a foggy harbor. We could illuminate the pathways for those whose insights had previously been overlooked, helping to guide research towards meaningful and actionable outcomes. So this shift made me realize something critical. Lived experience is not supplementary. It is central to producing research that is ethical, relevant, as well as impactful. So despite this progress that I've talked about myself, challenges still remain. Main structural barriers exist. There's often insufficient funding for co-lead roles for those with lived experience. Recognition in academic outputs is still limited. I feel like planting seeds in a rocky soil. The work is hard, but progress is slow, but growth will come and will be transformative. So these barriers are compounded by the fact that in many systems, the expertise of persons with lived experience is not fully understood or valued at all. Decisions are made for us, but not with us. And our perspective risks. The challenge is also an opportunity to advocate for inclusive governance in research. Mentor emerging researchers present here would want you to mentor us so that we can become full-fledged researchers. We need to co-create studies together with communities that are affected or communities of persons with lived experience. I've wrote a paper, maybe I would share that, where we talk about the research journey, where the research journey does not start where you have come up with your agenda and everything, then you bring in lived experience. No, it starts with everyone being on the table and working together until we have dissemination. So throughout my journey, I've come to see that lived experience is a bridge between research as well and the real world. So by integrating lived experience from conception to dissemination, we can ensure that research questions are relevant and address the priorities of those that are affected. They can improve the ethics and cultural sensitivity of any research design that you can think of. And also it contributes to reducing the stigma by centering narratives on the humanized lived experience. And also it strengthens the advocates, and I mentioned about also police uptake and engagement, because those that are affected would be involved. So I envision a future where lived experience researchers are co-leads on studies from day one, funding mechanisms, support leadership roles for those with lived experience. Academic institutions and policy spaces also recognize the value of experiential knowledge as equal to technical knowledge. And emerging lived experience researchers need to be mentored. And not only be mentored, they need also to be resourced and supported to thrive. So my journey from being a participant to a lead researcher actually illustrates that transformative potential of lived experience in research, and it shows that we can move from that role of being a passenger to that being of a driver. And we can actually shape the trajectory of research to be more ethical, inclusive, and impactful. And in conclusion, I just want to leave you with this simple message. Lived experience matters. It is a resource, a guide, and a catalyst for change. By integrating our voices into research leadership, we ensure that the studies are not just about communities, but with them, for them, and led by them. So the path from being a participant to a lead researcher is not easy, but it's a worth journey that anybody would want to take for us, for our communities, and for the future of the research. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sean. I mean, your experience moving from being part of as a participant to designing and being part of the research team is really inspiring. And as we can see in the comments, there are many people who've resonated with things you've said, but one thing that really stood out to me is mentorship and finding experienced lived experience patient partners who can mentor other lived experience professionals or people like us. That would really, really help move that needle. I mean, and then I want to read a few. I see we have like 3 minutes before we move on. Qualifying to do research and work as lived experiences is Edith Bukantari. The script is already written. Your role evolved, and that's just showing how you moved from being a participant to being an active contributor. That is impressive. From 23 studies, and now you've led 4. That is definitely knowledge. That is a resource there. Lived experience is a resource. And as you said, you don't have to go to school. It is something that we live, something that we continue to experience every day. And then another one she's picked up is lived experience is not supplementary. It is central to producing research that is ethical and impactful. Indeed, it is, because as you said, having research that involves patient partners, those are the researches that end up being used, that end up being very impactful as compared to those where we're just participants, because it is about us, for us, and we want to be involved. So thank you so much, Action. We really appreciate your sentiments, and please feel free to go in the chat and answer any questions or any other resources, like the paper you wrote. We're looking for that. Those are the resources we need to capacity build other lived experience experts. So I'd like to ask if we can go to the interactive Q&A. And as we wait, Sidon is working on that. Feel free to get in the chat and ask any question that you may have to any of our panelists. I'd be more than happy to read it out to them and make sure that they answer your questions. If you have any insights or anything that resonated, kindly go into the chat. Yes. So we'd like to hear your thoughts in the chat. All right, so here are some of the questions that we thought about as a team. Have you ever been part of a research project as a patient partner? And if you have, what was your experience? So you can let us know what your experience has been. Were you more of a participant? Were you up there in the research where you could influence it as a partner? I learned a new word from Action, lived experience researchers. I love that. Or you're a lived experience researcher like Action is. And what is your experience? So kindly go in the chat and write that. What does real patient partnership in research look like? You know, what maybe from your past, or even it could be an idea that was sparked during this webinar or virtual meeting. What does patient partnership look like to you? And then What myths or assumptions limit patient engagement? And lastly, how do we build trust between researchers and communities? And trust is a big one. Just hearing experiences from Rosebud, from Mbali, and even from Action. You know, when researchers come and they've already designed the research, they designed the research question of the study, it becomes very difficult to get that trust. And patient partners end up not being as trustworthy of that research. And also sometimes the research might not be something that's pertinent to us as lived experience experts. So to you, how can we build research and community? As we're waiting for, okay, I can read some, but as we're waiting for more responses, I'd like to put out a question to any of the panelists. Maybe let's do number 2. What does real patient partners in research look like? And we can go with Mbali. What do you think? It can be at the top of your mind.
Okay. To me, I
I know.
think what real patient partnerships look like means from day one, from day zero, actually, we are in the room. So we are in the room when the idea is born. We are there when it's being co-designed, when the study, we are setting the questions, we are interpreting the data, we are the co-authors of the papers. I feel like it means also funding our time, ensuring that you listen to our expertise, that our voices are just as important as everyone else's is in the room, that our labor is also acknowledged, and you're not just thanking us for basically putting in our input and listening to our story. I think real partnerships should shifts power so that patients are decision makers. We are not just token participants. I think it means the difference between being involved and having a real vote in how the research is actually shaped.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that, Mbali.
And maybe I
I'll
can
yeah, sure thing.
just add on what Mbali has said. Other than just being involved in all the stages, I think we also need to think about equity in power and decision making. So what we're talking about here is not where we say people should lead research and they're not qualified. People do not need to underestimate or to have capacity that those with lived experience have. It's better to ask and then get to know my limitations where I end up within the research. And having done that, what then needs to be done is to ensure that within that partnership, there are practical features that are important. For example, clear roles and responsibilities are key in any research. Support structures are also key, and commitment should also, reflect that partnership within. I'm not saying all of us, because we have lived experience, we should be, PIs. We should be, but evaluate my capacity and give me roles within the research that match my capacity. I have been when I had my master's before my PhD, I have been in roles where I am maybe a project manager running the research, but comes a time where I have to be a co-lead in a research. So look at my capacity. There's a lot of also power imbalances when it comes to or power imbalances and tokenism, even within the structures of the research. On paper, I might appear as a very capacitated person, because the team or the consortium just wants to get money because the funder is saying they should be lived experience within that. But come on the ground, I'm not able to deliver because you exaggerated my capacity. We don't want that kind of tokenism. We want really to ensure that the inclusion is genuine and meaningful, and we contribute accordingly. So that's what I just wanted to add into this to the question you asked.
Oh well, yeah, that's true. So you kind of want the title to match our experience, even though we're lived experience experts, which makes sense, so that we are contributing meaningfully to the research. Okay, I'll just quickly sample some responses. One, have you ever been part of a research project as a patient partner? She writes, yes. I've been a current partner since 2023. Really cool. I've overwhelmingly enjoyed my experience. That's really good to hear. And then for the second one, real patient partnership involves creating a framework in which patient partners feel safe to share their perspectives in a meaningful way. Exactly. And that kind of echoes what Action was talking about, where we're kind of matched to our lived experience and we can contribute meaningfully. What myths or assumptions limit patient partnerships? So some myths or assumptions that limit patient engagement are: patient partners will be too overwhelmed to be involved, even though patient partners choose to be involved. Fair point. That patient partners are unable to learn some fundamental research concepts that will enable them to contribute in a meaningful way. Yeah, that's really Action, what you were saying about the knowledge behind being involved or being engaged in a research. And the last question, how do we build trust between researchers and communities? Trust is built by having open conversation between researchers and parents and caregivers, so they understand each other's goals, interests, and limitations. Yes, so communication, open communication, transparent communication is what I'm getting from that. And mind you, we launched a poll. I didn't mention it. We launched a poll. So kindly also fill out the poll. There's some questions there, yes, no, maybe. So they're simple and quick to respond to. We'd love to hear from you. So Kabir has said, thanks everyone for this informative session. How can we progress the healthcare system in Africa to value patient voices in research and make the process accessible to patients' varied demographic? From experience, this seems to be more difficult, and it is such a vital tool to research. I do agree that when involving patients in research, there are limits in what we as patients are qualified to do, but I would love to know how we can actually equip African patients in particular to provide them with adequate skills to participate in patient research. Action, I don't know if you're in a position to give your insight here. Action, are you still online?
Joab,
Yes, Kwanele.
if I may, let me jump in.
Yeah.
I think this is a very important question about capacity building for patient partners. And I love this term, patient partner, expert by lived experience. And before I answer, I want to foreground it by saying proximity to us patients, to caregivers, is not lived experience. So going to the issue of how, I was trained in 2009 already by something called the National Breast Cancer Coalition in Washington, D.C. They have a project that they call Project LEAD, and it is a basic science training program for lay patients, so-called in medical research, lay patients. That's us. That means we're non-scientific, the people that tend to be anecdotal, emotional. So they helped us not only with understanding basic science, in this instance of breast cancer. They also helped us with understanding how to write a scientific publication with assistance from scientists, and also how to lobby at a policy level. But most importantly, me, Miss Rabel-Rouser, I loved them teaching us how to read the results of a new study that goes to mass media, and you hear about miracle drug, blockbuster, etc. They teach you in this course, which is 8 hours every day for 5 weeks, paid for them. I went to I went to Argentina for their Global South one. But at the end of it is with training, with respectful and meaningful resource support, as Action kept saying. Not all patient partners can become research partners. But how we started today, I want to say every patient partner should have space, because we shouldn't hold space for those of us that have academic backgrounds. We heard a very powerful open speaker who is formally educated as well, but has very deep African insights. We should invest in those too. And I'm out.
Thank you so much, Kwanele, for those insights. Amazing, amazing. I'm seeing that time for this session is coming to an end. But as we end this session, I'd like to just pop one more question for you in the chat before we move to the next. And the question is, in a few sentences, what are you leaving with from this session? Insights, any reflections, or anything that resonated with you? Please write that in the comments as we wrap up and move to the next session. And thank you so much to everyone who's participated in the poll and in the chat. You've said what you, anything. I'm seeing the questions on the poll just popped up again. Thank you everyone who answered. I've seen 11 participants answered. And maybe I can quickly go through this. If you have had any say in how the research is designed, would you have more interest in taking part? That is 100% yes of everyone who answered. Then number 2, would you be more open to joining research if you helped shape the questions? There was 10 out of 11, 90% said yes, and 1 not sure. And then, do you think your health journey could help shape better research and improve care for others? 100% yes, we agree there. And in your view, can lived experience improve research and patient care? 100% yes. And in a few sentences, what would you be leaving from the session? I see people have already answered that. Okay. And then what's one word that captures how you're feeling? So thank you so much for participating. And please continue if you have anything else in the chat. Next slide, please. So in the closing and call to action, I'm honored to introduce my mentor, Kwanele Asante. Kwanele is a lawyer, a bioethicist, and a member of the PxP Steering Committee, a member of the WHO Civil Society Working Group on NCDs, and a member of the British Medical Journal Patient Advisory Panel. Most importantly, she is the force behind PxP Africa, the glue who held us together, and our mentor here. So Kwanele, please do take the floor. We're really looking forward to hearing how you close the session.
Good evening, everyone. It's very seldom that Kwanele Asante does not have words, but today is one of those. I have a deep debt of gratitude to all of you who came along today. on this continent, around the world, always hear how global health, national health, regional health wants to put patients first. We are talking about people-centered approaches to health. But I've often wondered what we truly mean. The other thing I've heard is about my continent. Africa is a young continent. We have to leverage the African youth dividend. But I've not been sure what we mean by that. And what I have heard, I'm the grandmother of this African delegation this morning, or this afternoon, this evening, wherever you are in the world. But what I have heard over and over when I have spoken for the 19 years that I've been at national, regional, and global health is African partners, African patients do not have the capacity to speak as you speak, to participate in research, to participate in policy. Today, I hope we're starting to shift that narrative. I deliberately asked to stay in the background, and I'm not going to say much deliberately, because the aim, thanks to PxP Canada, most importantly, thanks to the Canadian Institute of Health Research, IMHR. I can never say that muscular word, so I'm just going to say IMHR. And I want to give a special shout out to Godfather, Professor Khan. He regards himself as a colleague. Thank you. Thank you, Dawn. Thank you, Hattie. I'm not going to say more about you guys. We did it. But very quickly, I start with Rosebud's message. You saw that Rosebud is a dynamic person. Rosebud is not an academic. Rosebud is an African knowledge holder who, thankfully for all of you, Rosebud can speak English. But I am indebted to the power of her remarks. I want to pay special gratitude to Mama Rosebud, her caregiver. Asante sana, Mama. Asante sana, Mama, for being Rosebud's partner today. But Rosebud said of us for PxP, I want you to help add volume to our voices. I'm going to say, Rosebud, I hear you, but I think, sis, our voices are already loud. I ask you to help make them louder. And most importantly, Rosebud said to researchers, I implore you to start with patients and end with patients. And I'm going to quickly move to Mbali. Listening to her was difficult because before she got to her big English, but listening to her story of navigating health systems was really difficult because it is my story too, which I shall not tell today. But this whole notion of me, Kwanele, Mbali, action, Rosebud, Joab, knowing my body and having medicine second guess me because I'm a so-called lay patient. Mbali, after explaining what happened to her, said, can you imagine what would have happened if they had listened to me? And then she talks about this notion of you have to do more, you exercise, you eat better. And then she says, I got fed up. And then they called me, I abscond. I am non-treatment compliant, I'm a defaulter, right? That for me, Kwanele is an example of medical paternalism, using that term as a lawyer by ethicist. But young people have nicer language. They call it medical gaslighting. I leave you. And we move to action. Action. Thank you for pointing out that we are here talking about health, but we're also reflecting on our own continent, Africa. But your powerful message kept going back to invest in ethical, relevant, impactful patient engagement, patient partner engagement. I know that you prefer lived experience expert engagement. You highlighted insufficient funding, and you said, I envision a future where lived experience is recognized on the same level as academic expertise. I would really gently would like to differ, gently correct you. Lived experience, patient partner knowledge is a form of expertise. So we're not waiting for this paradigm shift. In Africa, yes, we're going, but according to the WHO framework on meaningful engagement of people living with NCDs, mental health, and chronic condition that my partner in crime, my boss, Joab and I were involved with, which was published in 2023. Lived experience is recognized as a form of expertise, and action, action, action. You know I love your name. You went back to this whole issue of not all patients can just instantly become patient partners in research. You advocated very strongly for capacity building. You advocated very strongly for resource. When we talk resources, we're talking about knowledge resources, mentorship from established academics like our godfather, Prof. Karim. We need a champion, an African champion, to help us take the PxP Africa movement forward. We need mentors who are in the background, like Dr. Dawn, who is a chemist, and Dr. Hattie, who is an animal scientist, I believe. Yeah, what are they called? My English is finished. Yeah, we need those people in the background. So we are done. My call to action is we have seen what is possible within Africa. We talk that dirty word, decolonize. We're not fighting. We're asking for just partnerships, which are our Northern Hemisphere, our richer African institutes, because they do exist, to put more mindfully and more intentionally resources into truly putting patient at the center, truly honoring the WHO promise of 1936 of the right to participate as an inherent part of the right to health, later affirmed by the 1978 Declaration of Alma Ata, right of health users to be involved, right and duty to be involved in the shaping of health decisions that affect them. Going back, I want to close with our youngest, sorry, Mbali Boo. Mbali talks the big language of optimistic justice. Mbali, you know, I'm still struggling to pronounce that word. Mbali, thank you for helping everyone realize that we are shaking the tree. We are truly reimagining a new global health paradigm. We are, Mbali and I, tired of hearing sub-Saharan Africa suffers a disproportionate burden of, name the disease, but it's a burden of disease, mortalities, morbidities. And to our African governments, our African institutions, work with us. We are nice. We want to work together. Let's take this PxP movement forward. And I'm inviting you, because we're not done. We're done here. But PxP, look out. There's another region that's going to host their own regional PxP. I won't let the cat out of the bag. Then there's going to be the motherboard, PxP Canada, which was started in 2023. It's 2025. Watch what has happened in that space. Asante, merci, ke a leboga, dankie, whatever your language for thank you. Thank you for this magical evening. We're done, boss. You take it.
No, mic drop. Thank you everyone for joining. I think there's one more slide on the resource hub. So please check out pxphub.org.
Please show them PxP, that slide about the hub and everything. I kind of we're bragging now about PxP. Family,
yes.
global.
They're showing it now. And then as people leave, Hachi, you can show the cloud of responses from the poll. But oh wow, these are the responses of how people felt about the session. So thank you so much, and have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, good night, depending on where you are. Thank you so much.
Bye.
All right,
Good night.
bye.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night. Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.